Hey guys, welcome back. More Discovery stuff today. We have, well, it's probably the same day. You're probably watching the same day, probably if you're a fan. I don't know. Anyway, we are filming. Talking a review of episode 2 of Discovery, which is called "Battle at the Binary Stars."
Episode 2, the
Yes.
epic conclusion to the cliffhanger, and this leads in directly from Black to the exact same scene again, which is fine. And let's talk about it straight away, Stuart. But at the first episode and the end of this episode, we saw the Klingon fleet come at warp in a glorious set of CG. A lot of ships and a lot of ships, a lot of different designs, and boy, a hell of a fleet.
And they like coming out of warp like right at the last second, don't they? They don't come out and impulse in. No. Boom, impact. Kind of odd, but okay, whatever.
Well, very JJ-like. I mean, or in and out
Yeah.
of warp. Yeah, and a hell of a fleet, and this is the 24 house ships, which T'Kuvmach has summoned using the centuries-old obelisk, Klingon obelisk, where the torchbearer, the one and only torchbearer, starts. It's a ritual, it's a process, whatever. And so these ships represent the flagships of all 24 races. So this represents the creme de la creme of ships, surely, of the entire Klingon Empire. And when we went into this, we were hoping we'd see maybe some more classical nods, some older Klingons, because this is the entire breadth. You know, we've no longer got the single empire, single planet, the Kuvma House Klingons. We've now got the entire empire. So I was excited, and we saw lots of ships, and not a single one looks Klingon-esque. I'm sort of scrolling through them. I mean, they don't have any real. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, no,
Very-
they don't.
I mean, we see a couple of different designs we do in the trailers, but yeah. Again, like we've all said, it could be any alien race from any sci-fi, and look totally at home. But very for the flagships, flagships of the Klingon Empire, they certainly look like customized somethings because they're not old ships too. Only the sarcophagus ship is. But
And
still,
the sarcophagus ship, ironically enough, looks the most Klingon out of all of them.
I would agree.
So
then the first real scene is a new flashback. We get some prequel inside of our prequel inside of our pilot. Sarek,
7 years previous.
yes, Sarek and Burnham beaming into the transport room 7 years ago. This scene had a lot in it, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, that's one way to put it. It's an interesting transporter room design, having the ring around, and I got to point out here that they call it lateral vector transporter design.
Yes.
So that's why they're on the wall as opposed to being above, because it's lateral. And apparently Starfleet's phasing that out, but the Shinjo is an old ship, so they explain that. But
Oh, even further than that, they said it's been abandoned it's been fully phased out, and the Vulcans abandoned it because it used way too much power. So this is like a full generation ago of tech, which is great because no one likes this. It was universally panned when it came out. But I mean, you can sort of see, I guess, an evolution into, if you think about the NX being, you need an entire wraparound to beam one person or a set.
But it still had the circular pad at the top and the bottom.
True. Well, this still has a circular pad on the bottom, so that's still fine. This is just refined it to, it can be single ring or single circle pads, but they can do lots of different ones. But I appreciate that they gave us a full explanation. Like, they knew perfectly well this would be completely wrong, so they gave us a reason, and that's fine. I appreciated that.
But doesn't this seem like H.G. Wells technology to you? Like
That's
the
been
time
said
machine.
to death at that point, hasn't it? Yeah.
I know, but it's a retro sci-fi look that doesn't fit in with Star Trek. Even though Star Trek itself is retro, it just doesn't work.
But I appreciate they said they specifically called it out. I like the line. This was a good first scene, I felt, or first new scene, because they joke about the first contact. This isn't first. Well, it is actually kind of a first contact. We're meeting for the first time. Please be nice. And then Sarek walks away saying, "Behave." What a great little summary of her character. She's not that. Yeah, behave.
Yeah, don't be a smartass.
Too lot of strings to get you this rust bucket of a ship that's already old 7 years ago. Which I appreciated. They specifically said Shinju was old. This is 7 years in the past. So, and what is old? 10 years? 15 years? 20 years? I mean, that means that Shinjo is potentially 27 years by the time we reach the start of the first episode.
Well, Samuel,
Oh,
the Enterprise is 20 years old. We feel her time is over.
but it was 50 years
So-
old. Or it's like 40 years old.
Yeah. Anyway, so
You know what I mean?
20 years old. I don't know.
But I like this is distinctly a nice jump back. This is definitely a NX huge evolution. You know,
Mhm.
I like they pushed it as far. What is old? Old could be 20, could be 30, could even be 40 years if it's that old. I mean, we don't get any sense that it's a science ship or an explorer. Like they never give any designation for apart from it's Walker class. So it could be any sort of ship in the fleet. Who knows? It could just be a scout ship. So therefore, even less need of an update. But I appreciate it was old. That explains why everything's more Franklin looking or more NX looking.
Yeah. Well, sort of.
Yeah.
Anyway, they make their way from the transporter room through the hallway where we had the conversation about the transporter room technology and into a turbo lift.
Bit of a weird one, isn't it?
It is a weird turbo lift. It's
Very
oddly
bulkheady.
designed and dark. I mean, it could be night shift, to be fair. What's in the turbo lift?
A handhold? No, a handhold.
I don't want to talk about,
Oh,
but we have to because we've
Okay.
already addressed it.
okay.
There's a little schematic turbo lift thing that was shown early on.
Like a week ago.
Yeah, that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And we concluded with a lot of scientific deduction that it was not the Shinzao represented.
Mhm.
Shinjo, whatever.
Yeah.
Clearly it was. As you can
Yeah,
see
no.
from this screen cap.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where the production team didn't update a graphic, which is on a screen, which can just be bleep, it's changed.
Seen for a second. It's only seen for like 1 second while they're panning around.
It'd be easier just not to have it. And it's funny, it's not even like it's a map, and it's not even where you'd have a map in the continuity. And I appreciate, or don't appreciate, that when it would have been nice if they had a handhold like TOS,
Yeah.
that would have been a nice, obvious touch, but she pressed a button, and the button sound effect was a TNG one. Very distinct as well. They keep, in this episode specifically, they use a lot of TNG sound effects, and define, it's like, okay, klaxons I guess are universal, or they just, ransacked through the, I mean, I love seeing them, or hearing them I should say, but they definitely ransacked the audio library, and said, what can we just throw in everywhere? But hey, But how many decks did the Shinjo say in the display? Because in the display it says 10 decks.
Yeah.
They specifically say damage to decks 13 to 15. And my dad said later on, there is 7 decks in the saucer. So this MSD only shows 10 decks, but they say 15 decks. So also it misaligns.
I thought the damage was deck 6 to 9.
No, decks 13 to 15. In one of the scenes. There's multiple scenes. There's multiple. The first volley damages 13 to 15. The Burnham's on 9. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So, again, I mean, decks change. I mean, every movie they get it wrong, sort of thing. But it's, again, this is modern day. It's less reason to get it wrong in modern day when you have a year of extra development because you had to delay it for a year. And, don't release a diagram that's the wrong ship, wrong decks, missing every detail. At least to the public, because that was a weird decision. Although I do like a Vulcan haircut, and I will say, just like in Star Trek, whichever I think 09, they walk into a turbolift, continuous shot. They walk out of a turbolift. It's a green screen, so they can use double set. And it did take a few seconds. It wasn't instant like the JJ Prize, which I appreciate. There was a beat of it's moving. Although, come on, guys, the sound effect was identical. Again, I'm throwing a lot of things out there, but the sound effect of the communicator of the turbolift was great, but didn't have the lines. But I guess that'll be the next turbolift for Discovery because it shows an evolution towards TOS deck.
Yes.
Sorry, bit of a ramble there.
Bit of a ramble. That's okay. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she gets on the bridge, looks around, says it's acceptable, basically. Even though it's a piss poor bridge design layout, which we've talked about in the last episode.
And there's lens flares to set us up to walk into the bridge.
Yeah, well, lens flares exist in real life sometimes.
Oh yeah, nothing against them. It was just funny to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the bridge is a lot of people. It's just huge. It feels like a space. I mean, that could easily be a space station ops. In terms of scaling.
Yeah.
And she meets Chisaru and starts their wonderful friendship. See last part.
Yes, please watch part 1 before you watch this one. Part 1's a much better episode anyway, in my opinion, than part 2.
Yes. But she gets arrested, put into the brig, and I will note, and I've got a screen cap here, everyone's so worried, and for a split second, there is a shot of it earlier on as well, you see a red alert bar, you look at the picture, Stuart, and there's a TMP Star Trek 6 alert, and I was like, yay, they used a Canon graphic!
Yep.
That was great.
Slightly different, modernized a little bit, but
yeah,
it's not era appropriate though.
Well, we don't know it didn't exist in NX.
Next up, we are on the Klingon ship, and we are talking to the 24 houses. Well, some of the 24 houses.
True.
Takuvama is talking to them, and they all look very similar in design. Some have more prominent ridges, but none of them have the classic kind of hair of the Klingons. So
there's 7 holographic people represented. I skipped 7 or 6 depending on how the armor's done. So yeah, 7 or 6.
Yeah.
And I was really looking forward to this moment to see just the background guys, like in Star Trek Into Darkness. The foreground had no hair, the background had hair. There was a variety.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you saw this and they sort of committed down to this style?
I was disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's been a lot of negative talk about the Klingons. We've tried to keep it more upbeat and kind of say, well, maybe,
possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's still might be, again, they're not all represented. Maybe these ones all become extinct during this season. They all get wiped out, and
it's true. 7 of 24. I mean, most of them could look like not them. These are the closest to Kuvamars. They're more friendly with him. They're not friendly, but you know what I mean. They're the more sympathetic ones because they're of the same genetic back.
Yeah, could be.
But it would have been nice to at least have 2 of them or 1 of them, because the ones that don't speak, just throw them with. But I guess that would interfere with their creative vision. They want to be alien, but I was thoroughly disappointed and felt let down by them, because they had a way out to justify their interesting change, kind of poorly, but justify it and still give us the continuity. But when they sort of abandon something, again, hey, they said trust them. By the end of the season, they might suddenly grow hair because now they do want to become what Federation. But judge it on what's seen, because that's how it's been. You can't judge in Darkness with Khan's backstory from a novel, from a comic being represented, and hey, well, they explained it there. It's like, yes, but they didn't explain it in the movie. Doesn't make the movie any better. You got to judge it for its internal thing. But I will say I did like Chris Obi's Klingon, the other main guy. He had some nice sort of venom, and his armor's brilliant. I appreciated there, like way stronger than Takuvama in terms of a character, and so I was very it's weird how impressed you can be with such a small performance, like relative to the 2 parts. I was like, yep, nope, I buy him.
Well, I know he's going to have a much bigger role coming up, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Absolutely, I totally agree with you on that one. So again, the holographic technology, as we talked about in the last one, a little bit odd in TOS, being able to visually see a full figure. As I called them in the last episode, force ghosts, or like an Emperor hologram from Star Wars.
These are Klingons, so who knows? I mean,
true.
They can have whatever the hell they want. Just should have hair as well. And it was an interesting conversation. Trying to justify, because they all did still come. They didn't. I'm assuming they didn't know Takuvama was behind it necessarily. It was just the beacon was activated. But all the hell. I mean, if you want to, it kind of shows if you wanted to take over the Empire, you get them all here, then you kill them all, because they all would still come. You know what I mean? There's a hell of a trust to send to bring all of your leaders to this, or at least this 7 with 24 ships. And he sort of convinces them. At least the main guy doesn't get convinced, but the other one's like, "Oh, I'll listen to what you say." And again, it's all about racial purity. We don't want to have peace, because peace means we're subduing ourselves culturally. And it's like, not the last 90 years of Cold War, you haven't. So let's just keep doing that for another 90 years. Look at TNG. They haven't subdivided who they are. They're very different. You look at that episode in DS9 where on the station with Gowron, not very human-y. They're their own selves. They don't care. So, but again, he's a radical, purist, insane guy. So it doesn't have to be rational. Just I'm sad they bought into it.
Good summary. I didn't have much to say about the Klingon aspect of it, but thank you for that.
Yeah. But you got an explanation about the sarcophagus ship. It was his dad's. That he abandoned on a planet, but people, wherever, or the Klingons were still able to get on board and play ball or play whatever in the bridge.
Yeah.
Because obviously you go into a huge ship that's decades old to play ball, and they beat up Takuma, who finds it. So that's his backstory. He gets beaten up as a child by people who are inside of his dad's lost ship.
Again, episode 2 kind of drops the ball in a few spots, in my opinion.
Well, Michelle Yeoh obviously says those words. We go in peace. Wants to negotiate.
Oh.
And I guess that sells.
Yeah,
the-
and
his
Takuma was
argument.
like, here it comes. Here comes the lie. We come in peace. No, they don't.
Because there's a fleet. A fleet does arrive. And I was out of sequence a little bit with my images. But yeah, a fleet arrives, and boy, we are going to look at these future. But I'm kind of wish they didn't reveal this fleet appearance in a trailer like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Because if we'd had this without realizing it was coming, we would have been like, stop it, let's look at it. You know, that would have been such an epic moment to see so many of Johnny Use's interesting designs appear.
Yeah.
Although I'm so sorry, Stuart. I got myself a 4 nacelle. You didn't get yourself a 3 nacelle. I'm so sorry.
I know. Well, I expected not to get one. But I got to say, though, the first ship that warps in is very impressive and looks very TOS.
Yeah, this is the thing. This is a lot of ships, a lot of variation, a hell of a lot of variation.
And as you know, Trekyards, we specialize in ships, so we're going to be analyzing each of these at some point. So
Yes. And then then the whole we come in peace, and they say open fire, and the Shinjo gets attacked. And I gotta say, it's hard to represent this, but you know this fleet shot where they're firing weapons at each other.
yeah,
It's pathetic.
Yep.
It's teeny bolts that look like nothing. It's really pathetic in terms of, like, if they're firing torpedoes and big bolts. I mean, it was confusingly pitiful. This is the flagships of 24 houses with the biggest ship ever. You know, I mean, what did you think about this epic battle? That's what we're leading up to.
I found it very static and very unimpressive. There was not a lot of movement. There was not a lot of. Well, eventually, later there was a little bit of kind of dogfighting kind of going on, but initially, yeah, the like you said, the phaser bolts are kind of unimpressive. The actual hits to shields are not anything special.
Well, they go
It's
through
just,
shields almost. They just hit the hull and.
It was underwhelming, to say the least. Yes.
And I felt this is the biggest problem I have this episode. Pretty much is the awful pacing. We've set this thing up. Battle. We have about 12 seconds of pretty dull battle, and then it keeps jumping to very static scenes with no sense of drama, no sense of we're in battle, no sense of, oh my goodness. They've already said they're totally outgunned by this one Takuma ship, and they're also now outgunned, outnumbered, and each ship is their flagship, so therefore they can outnumber. Like, there's no sense of drama. They should either be all annihilated, or they should. It was absolutely bizarre how awful the pacing and just the feel. Really badly done this first half. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I might be a bit too harsh there, but it was really not well done.
I expected more from the battle. Having seen what we'd already seen, I thought, okay, that's just a taste of the
Yeah.
battle. It's going to be something epic,
Yep.
and it just it fell flat. So
Yeah. Yeah.
let's let's move into the Brig though. With the shot of her in the Brig now. This looks something out of a video game.
What's Tron Legacy? I mean, that could be the bar, top of the bar.
Yeah, or Tron Legacy. I actually have Tron written down, or even the Into Darkness Brig. It's very similar design-wise to that. And again, it doesn't say TOS to me.
Well,
It
again,
doesn't even
this
say
is
Federation to me with that shape.
Remember, this is not a TOS ship. This is an old ship. So this is not.
True.
We're 40. This ship is a 40-year design away from TOS theoretically.
But look at it compared to NX-01's Brig. This is like.
Well, NX-1 Brig is literally a room with bars. I mean, that's just a cage. There is no Brig. It's a cage. I mean, you can't really compare anything to NX-01. It's just us plus warp, you know. But yeah, it's huge. Although you see later on they can subdivide the whole, like the force fields. I'm sure they can subdivide like 10 brigs, but it's like, is this a brig for a person or a car? Is this the lockup for the car?
Wow, when your captain's on an ice planet that you launched him on and it's being chased by a big red monster, you want to beam that monster up and lock it up. There you go. Put it in there.
visually, and it looks different to other stuff as well. I mean, the amount of lights and colours, it
doesn't fit the ship.
They could have saved budget and made it a smaller set, that's more in keeping, and put some more into the shooty stuff, the space battle.
Yes.
Because it's just very unnecessary, and then since the ship gets blown up, we don't even going to see the brig again, so... It doesn't get blown up, but, you know, very odd use of money here. And they even blow it up in the same episode. It's not even... Although it might just be like a redress of the sick bay or something. Although, before we jump too far, I do want to say, I made very much note of this. I think we skipped past it. The ships that come out of warp to save them and fail is the Clark, the Shuren, not the Shroud, the Shuren, but it sounds Shroud. The Taplanahath, the Corridor, the Sioux, the Ride, the Earhart, the Dana, the Edison, and the Jaeger. So I appreciate some of those nice references.
Well, the Sioux would be a reference to the Sioux Indians. Probably named after different tribes. There's a Geronimo class and stuff and all that. So,
but Planahath obviously is the Vulcan ship that came to Earth, which is also in 09. It's what the class is docked there. The Jaeger, obviously, Alex Jaeger, Earhart, Voyager reference, and / just real life reference, and yeah. So that was nice. And I put an Edison, obviously. So it's nice they sort of called it all out because it's like little Easter eggs you can just throw in, which was fun.
And I'm glad you wrote those down because when we were watching it the first time, I'm like, God damn it, I'm going to have to write those names down. Then when I watched it again to take my notes, I'm like, I'm not writing those names down. Somebody else will do it for me. I expected some of the fans to put it online. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
I didn't want to have to like pause it and like write everything down.
But back to the brig though.
Yes.
So the scene in the brig, the other officer that's been injured, goes here instead. What do you think of that?
I thought that was very odd. Very odd. I mean, I understand he's confused. He has a concussion. But wouldn't you have medical staff, especially in a battle, like helping injured people to the sick bay? Possibly. I don't know. I just thought it felt very contrived. I did like the fact that he did seem confused. He didn't know where he was. And he's like, why are you here? We're in a battle. You should be on the bridge. You were just on the bridge. You've seen what happened, you know?
Yeah.
And then the fact that he said, why are we fighting? We're explorers. I love that. I love that to show that they're very peaceful. So, and then I looked at Sylvia and Dave, who was watching this with me. And I'm like, he's going to die in a second. And also, gone.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I was like, okay, that's written.
Yeah, well, we had talked about
of course they hit the brig on that quarter. Yeah.
We had talked about the scene where she's in that little blue box, and I'm like, yep, that's exactly what's coming up right after this, because this is gonna get blown apart. So, what did you think of him showing up there?
Well, I mean, right at the start of the episode, we see them get hit by a torpedo. He gets hit in the face, and the frame after that is a corridor, dark, sparks, medical people are helping people. There's rubble on the floor. The ship is being pretty heavily damaged, at least in certain areas. And here we've gone from this battle to the brig. He walks in, confused, but no sense of urgency, sort of wanders up to him and says, oh, shouldn't you be on the bridge? And yet this ship is flying through a fleet of 24 ships of the fleet, people getting killed and murdered, and Pace just goes, ooh, let's have a conversation. And they don't even have the rumbles and it should not have been here. It should have been right, like...
Yeah.
No, it should have been after the ceasefire or something else. It was very, very poorly... I like the scene conceptually. You know, he's known her for maybe 5-7 years. He you know, she's second in command. He's been there when the captain was wrong, so she probably is also wrong to be in this fight. You know, but yeah, to get through the ship, to go there, not be picked up by medical who's running the halls with. Yeah, it wasn't a well placed scene in that. Yeah, again, pacing was really not good in this episode.
And it slammed on the brake pedal in the middle of a very mediocre battle scene.
And that was literally all the battle CG. I mean, we got, for the most part, that was almost all of it already done. At the start of a battle with theoretically, 33 ships? Which we've never,
like
that's DS9 level in a sense. I mean, it's bigger than any TNG battle, bigger than any Voyager battle. I mean, yeah, very, very strange there.
And then we get a flashback to Sarek mind melding with her. Now I gotta say, you actually don't have a picture of it in here, but some of the lighting on his face at that moment He looked very Romulan. He looked very Romulan from like Balance of Terror kind of Romulan. He looked kind of evil and just dark, and with the purple lighting that was on his face, which you should probably get a screenshot of. I think that'd be cool. He just looks like a Romulan commander from Balance of Terror. That's just the vibe I got from him. Okay. I thought that was an odd scene to put in there. Again, it kind of screwed with the whole flow of the show for me. The flashback scenes really didn't work for me in this. The
first one did. I think the first, because there's a break, but it should have been the last episode, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's just some moments that just kind of really took me out of what was going on, and they weren't well executed as far as being put into the show. They weren't put in the right spot. They weren't timed properly. It was just took me out of it. So this was
they undid this episode by poor editing, and choices. Because I mean, flashbacks you can put anywhere. You know, I know she's in the brig at this point, so she's thinking back. I think it's before that anyway, because she hasn't done the whole my meld thing yet anyway. But yeah, so it's interesting that she was in a destroyed version of the science place, you know, where she was earlier on. When you watch these episodes back to back, in the first episode she's being taught, and he's talking to her like sort of friend Protege. In this episode, then she's basically the exact same costume, exact same makeup, in exact same scenario, getting bashed up. So you're saying that he was on the colony that was attacked by the Klingons. He saved her because she was one of his favorite pupils. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're meant to be two, like, she was just happened to be learning Vulcan, you know, Vulcan stuff on a Vulcan colony that got attacked. But to have them played in the same location, looking to be, was pretty confusing. And then to mind meld with, because if at this point you have,
I know.
How many people if she's only survivor, you mind melding with the last fight? Because in Enterprise it was sacred. I mean, you're unauthorizingly, I mean, you have to bring her back to life, but you also infuse her brain with part of yourself. He says he gives you part of his Katra, so they can communicate over space, which happens in like 2 minutes.
Yes.
What?
I don't know.
What?
I don't know, man. Like I said, episode 2 is it wasn't very well written, in my opinion. There's a lot of...
But what? What do you think about that whole pretty radical sequence?
I thought it was out of place and didn't make any sense, especially with what we know of the Vulcans. I mean, technically Spock could have had this conversation with his dad many, many times.
Well, again, he might have. We never knew. I mean, that's... Well, I appreciate he said it's a huge physical draining thing. I'm assuming, like, his hair goes greyer and he's losing years of his life. That's why he looks older and clearer or something. But my assumption, because it makes no sense to have telepathic communication over star systems, it's like transport beaming. Distance is a thing, guys. I was assuming it was just the remnants of him in her brain giving her advice, because it doesn't need to be really him to be as useful. True. There's no need for that to be. I'm hoping they retcon that and say it was just her, you know, traumatized brain. Yeah. Using his image to kind of convey a message. But you've also got to remember that Spock and his father never mind melded in their entire life. That was a plot point when they brought him back, and he was sad about that, and he had to take thoughts from Picard, and yet he mind melds like that. Yes, with a dying Burnham, but you would think you'd use science stop Vulcan mind melds to heal her. You know, like, beam me up, Vulcan ship, to the sick bay, please. I've got a survivor. Okay, 5 seconds later, you're scanning her. You know, that really interesting precedent, and I think pushes the boundaries of what would make sense in the entire premise of that, for sure. But one bonus thing though, in the last battle sequence, we see one of the ships fire blue photon torpedoes with the blue TOS photon torpedo sound effect, which I didn't notice until this last one. So I was like, yay, we have. That must have been a newer ship, I guess.
Could be, absolutely, yeah. Now, what did you think of the force fields and the hull breach scene? I thought that the way that the breach was shown doesn't look very realistic. It doesn't look like there's a section missing out of the ship. It looks very... I don't even know how to describe it. It looks like it was just hit by an anomaly, not a weapon.
I can't say. I don't know space physics. I mean, this is 9 decks in the middle. Like, I don't know how that would look without just ripping, without like nemesising it and just ripping that part off. So I'm not going to comment. It looked fine, but we already knew it was in the trailer. So it was just like, okay, this is the visuals we've already seen. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although the pan out was really quite cool, and seeing the whole damage, but force fields keeping it a shell, because they said bulkheads and they said force field, so it has both, which is nice. It's a nice touch.
Now here too we see a bunch of smaller little scout class ship kind of things, I guess, zimming around. I thought they were probably going to be related to the bird of prey, but they don't really have the same kind of feel, unfortunately. They look more like a Riemann design. But we'll talk about ships later. I'm sorry, we shouldn't bring up ships.
That's fine. We are the ship guys. But speaking of ship, the Europa comes in and saves the day, and in the middle of a battle, literally in the middle, like in the front line, because the ship was in the front line of battle almost, we take another break from the battle to save the ship, to have a conversation with them. And it's another ridiculous break in there's no tension. Because you would think this flagship comes in, and if it's a flagship, it's a really advanced ship, which is nice to know that. You would think a squadron of the last remaining Klingon ships would attack it straight away. You wouldn't have time to safely track and have a conversation away. It was like...
Oh, it was cool to see the tractor beam from the Shinjo's point of view, and then see the Europa. The Europa's a beautiful ship, by the way. I love that design.
And it's blue nacelle.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, like you said, it'd be a flagship, one of the new ones. And Admiral Anderson, I thought was a fantastic character. I loved him for as long as he lasted. I wish he would have, because usually admirals in Star Trek are dicks. It's just the way it is. This guy was a nice guy, very TOS kind of captainish. I really liked him.
You can see why they promoted him, can't you?
Yes.
And then we have an interesting situation, and Takuma says that he has many invisible ships, and his invisible something, not his flagship, obviously, another ship rams into the Europa, which causes, and I did not think that was the way it was going to be, and obliterates it, sort of, and the Europa...
Yeah, it's got kind of a hole like a knife edge almost, and it cuts right through the Europa, which is a shame. I love the Europa.
And it proves that it's not one-off cloaking technology, which is, again, and I was hoping it'd be one-off, like Defiant. It's not. Okay. And then, strangely enough, the ship they allow a warp core explosion, detonation. Fine, the ship's lost, although shouldn't really be lost. I mean, you would think, like the Nemesis, reverse thrust full, go... You know, you could escape that. I mean, there isn't that many vital systems in the front of the saucer. Not really. And that it's just ramming. It wasn't...
Wow.
You know, they escaped pod very, very quickly, considering. I mean, probably was... You know what I mean? Like the Enterprise E survived a ram that was worse in some ways.
Well, that's the way older... That's way more advanced technology as well. This... the antimatter explosion was very cool. That initial blast was very neat. And then, it took the other ship out with it, which I loved. Usually that doesn't happen. It's just some kind of minor damage. I love that it was just totally annihilated it.
Yeah, I was thinking that, because this ship is huge. I mean, it is... I mean, if the Europa is, 10, 15 decks, this is like 50, 60 decks.
Yeah.
And it did annihilate... Because there was just debris left. And you don't see a ship in the fight again. So, Takuma loses one of his cloaking ships. Okay, fine. And also, enough distance has been brought with the Shinjo and this to not... So it can eliminate the thing next to it, but can't even damage the Shinjo.
Yeah.
Again, distance in space didn't really work there. They're close enough to tractor and to get hit by a ship, and yet not to cause any damage to the Shinjo. And they even say shields back at 47%. Very short order after that. Which is very good job, engineers. Seriously, that's a hell of a lot of shield power in a short amount of time. Well done.
Yeah.
And so next we have some Klingon reinforcements. I think 4 or 5 new ships come in, and within the first volley, they actually blow up 4 Federation ships. If you watch it frame by frame, it's like that another devastating blow. And so I guess they really, I mean, if you think about what was happening, they really sunk a lot of ships into this engagement. But they said they had heavy losses. And interestingly, if you look at the right-hand side, there's a new ship class. Looks very, very different to all the other ones, with big glowing pieces. Kind of looks like the Manta shuttle from I think kind of a cool design, even less Klingon, but I mean, interesting to see another, and again different to everything else, but again they're unique house
It looks
flagship.
like a future Federation fighter design almost.
Yeah. So they lose basically all their ships in this part of the battle.
Yeah.
And they convince the other guys, we basically won this, and they say Takuvma the Unforgettable, which I didn't realize was a reference to Kalis the Unforgettable. That is a direct parallel. So they were saying, you are indeed the resurrection of Kalis.
The embodiment of Kalis, yeah.
Because, although you would think, question, they said heavy losses before the reinforcements showed up. So if they've lost 4 or 5 capital ships, say, does that mean they've lost 4 or 5 house leaders? That's a bit of a heavy sacrifice.
The leaders are probably on Kronos. They sent their generals or their...
Well, that's the thing. Is that not showing dishonor to Takuvma? Well, they don't like Takuvma, but is it not dishonorable to not send you if it's specifically a meeting of the 24 houses?
I wouldn't say so, no.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. I kind of took that as
They probably just sent the ships that was closest.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next scene I really appreciate because there's no holograms. It's on a view screen, which is what it should be. Takuvma basically says that they're at war, and yeah, it's actually, I don't have a problem with him being on the view screen. I mean, that's fine. That's what it's supposed to be.
It looks way more natural, doesn't it?
It does, and thank God for that because the holograms just didn't work for me. Sorry, I'm stuck on them.
And then Burnham escapes, and she has a really long fight with the computer.
About ethical protocols, which is really cool.
It was great to see the inner depth of that, but again, so much more advanced theoretically to what other computers would be, even at Abdul Majel Barrett, which we mentioned in the last episode. Yeah. And you would think the computer, which is better and smarter than everything you know to be existent, she would already know in 8 minutes you're going to die. She wouldn't be resisting. As soon as Burnham said, I need to get over there, she'd say, okay. To fight an officer, if the computer can't think 2 steps ahead to 8 minutes from now, she's dead in 8 minutes. Have you worked out a solution? No. So
it's not a very logical solution that she suggested. The computer wouldn't necessarily consider going into the vacuum of space as a solution to that problem.
Yeah. Although side beaming isn't a thing, I guess, but she escapes, and it was pretty straightforward. You didn't really need so those things. Yeah. And then we get a non-hologram scene again. We get just on display, and I was like, because we had a hologram representation of the ship earlier on, we get another screen. I was like, yay, screens of the capital ship, because they want to bomb it. They want to suicide bomb it.
Kind of. They want to send a work bee
with pilot.
Yes.
They want to suicide bomb it.
And a photonic charge.
Great work bee reference.
Yeah, I was looking forward to seeing another one. I was hoping it would be different than the one we saw in the first episode that was fixing the relay. But anyway, Michael Burnham shows up on the bridge, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're alive!" kind of thing. The shocked look on their face because they thought she was dead.
Yep.
And she talks them into, if you kill him, you're going to make him a martyr.
I didn't see that coming. I forgot they beamed aboard, so I was like, ooh, yeah, that first sense she's really made all episode, like proper thought out sense.
Yeah. So they come up with a new plan, which is very cool because the Klingons at this point are collecting the dead from the battlefield because they're untethered dead. They're going to float away, and Takuvma's like, I will, make sure that they each get their own burial, and by my own hand, I will make sure that.
Yep.
Which is quite dedicated.
Very cult leadery, though.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing you say to your followers to make them really, he'll get an extra mile for me after I'm dead. Yeah. So I'll die for him. But again, the obvious question, why didn't he just beam them all aboard? Because they have beaming technology in Enterprise. Why is he tractoring them?
Because it's an older ship. Maybe it doesn't have
with more advanced weapons, because it said it could beam them really easily. And a cloaking device. That's just lazy. I mean, it's a thing to let a thing happen. They could easily have just beamed it onto a person, and then that person beamed away. Like,
maybe they were tractoring the bodies within distance, transporter distance. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Whatever.
As they pull the torpedo out, and I've got the screen cap here of you almost see a torpedo. I'm like, oh, are they going to be Is it photon torpedo looking like? Is it going to be a real torpedo looking like? Is it going to be random looking like? You didn't see it. You just saw an open hatch. Damn it. But then again, better to canon. And then it being...
Then they put a thermal detonator from Star Wars on the transporter pad. I mean, a photonic charge. I'm so sorry. And beam it onto a body. I thought it would have made more sense to beam it into a body.
As I assumed it would have...
I thought you'd see like a light glow underneath the armor kind of thing. Like, But no, beam it onto the chest while it's in a tractor beam.
No, before. It's just before.
Well, it's still materializing as a tractor beam locks on.
Yeah.
So, it's not a big deal.
And then it decimates the neck. Now, this is like the biggest plot point of this entire episode. How do you feel about the Federation using a dead body to put a bomb on a ship? Does that feel okay to you?
No, because that's a tactic that's used on... Well, the Vietnamese used that in the Vietnamese War. They would booby trap the bodies of the Americans so that... I mean, it's kind of a... Yeah, it's not a very ethical way to...
And, I mean, obviously the captain refused to fire first and paid for it, so I can see her morals being out the window a bit. But I was like, that's a bit gruesome. Especially I assume they've been inside the body. But it's like, damn... Yeah. And one torpedo won't do that much damage. Come on, it's a huge ship. And it's the biggest ship you've ever seen in Star Trek at this point.
Well, I mean, they're beaming it aboard. Well, they're hoping it's going to go aboard without the shields up, right?
Still, one torpedo is not the biggest thing ever. Otherwise, a single torpedo past shields would be the end of a ship, and it destroyed the entire neck. I think it started to come off, but we never got to see it like fully separated or anything. I necessarily didn't get a sense it was, but that did a lot more damage I thought it was going to. It shows one torpedo is enough to really mess up a ship. But again, Star Trek 6, it does. But
yeah, and we've said that kind of thing before. Like it's a structural weak point, especially on certain ships that we talk about. But definitely on the boom of a Klingon ship. So that's very interesting, actually.
And if you're gonna beam more than one torpedo,
yeah,
you've got the time. But better than a suicide bomb. Because Federation doesn't do suicide bombers.
We're not saying anything else about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then we see them getting ready to beam over to the ship. I gotta admit, I love the phasers in this show. Fantastic. I also love the blue indicator for stun and the red for kill, which we'll talk.
Shoots
red bolts a little bit later.
But we do see them beam on board with a 3-beamy. I think it only uses 2 to beam, but they have a digital beamy thing. Which they had an X. Yeah, they'd be on board. And we only had like 10 minutes left in the show. I was like, oh, damn. You're going to have this cool payoff with 10 minutes. And in very short order, Michelle gets stabbed. Michael kills Takuma. And they leave.
Even though she just gave the advice not to kill him and make him a martyr. I mean, she's upset that the captain got killed. But it seems like an odd decision. Especially when you had your phaser on stun. You could have still completed your mission. You're supposed to be kind of emotionless and not because you were raised on Vulcan. So why would you go all emotive and switch to kill?
Put it this way, Spock to avenge your captain? Do that.
Exactly.
I know she's not Spock, obviously, but it was really like she switched instantly. Saw the stab. She already had the gun up. She instantly, I'm gonna kill this mother beeper. Like there was no hesitation. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like you said, the fact that by the time she got to Michelle, Captain, whatever, they already beamed them aboard. To stun him and kill him would have the exact same timings. You just let down the entire Federation.
Yep.
You could have personally tortured him afterwards. Way more fun. If you want to be a real vindictive SOB.
Yeah. But that was a very emotional moment, and a lot of people, their emotions would take over and they would do that. So maybe she's been repressing her emotions so long being on Vulcan that she just snapped, had like a nervous breakdown.
I mean, 7 years is a long time to know somebody, and that's basically her mum.
Yeah.
Although I didn't, still 2 episodes, you didn't get that full connection. I wasn't sad for her death, not really. You didn't really build her up enough to feel that. And again, body armor, pretty ineffective. Stab. I know it's the Stormtrooper effect, but body armor. We have Kevlar that can stop blades. Why is it not? They wore body armor for a reason. They wore tactical gear that proved completely pointless.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was
just
very,
like the torchbearer.
just like Torchbearer, yeah. Yeah, and I mean it's nice that Takuma kills her, but very odd, very very rushed. That end bit was so rushed.
Yeah, and this death scene with Takuma again, the Vulcan makeup to me looks very much like a Halloween mask. It looks like a mask. It doesn't look like makeup at all.
Yeah, and the fact his arm is right up there makes him look very fat and like.
Yeah, it was an odd scene, and also as I've said before too, the delivery of the Klingon. Dialogue was very poor. It sounded like mush mouth, like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, he had
just
problems with that.
Yeah, it wasn't clear. I know the actor has an accent,
Oh,
and he did have problems with the Klingon language, so I think he was doing it line by line beforehand. But still, I don't think it was very well done.
Yeah, and again, I not expect him to die. That was a nice twist. To actually become that martyr, because if you want to cause if they all believe he's Kahless, they just kill Kahless. Yeah, that deserves a bit of a war. I mean, that's why Babylon 5 started their war. I mean, you know, a sacred leader. But yeah, weird death scene. It didn't have the emotional
Seemed
punch.
rushed.
Yeah. And the problem with not adding all this Kahless bonus philosophy mythology stuff and not having it linked to the stuff we already know is that he's saying these words that mean nothing to us, as if they mean something. Obviously, I appreciate they're all talking just Klingonese. That's great, but it wasn't written particularly well. I thought. But yeah, and then basically two things more happen. They escape, and Michael's in prison, goes on trial, and there ends the episode really abruptly.
Yeah, and that court-martial thing at the end, why was it so dark? What are we, like... Are there supposed to be mysterious figures there behind, behind those lights?
They couldn't let her know who was trying her, or she would come after them, because she's just, she's the war, she's the war, not hero now. She'll track him down. Yeah,
it was too dark for the Federation. It was just too out of... It just didn't make visual sense as far as being a Federation thing. I know it's supposed to be... Yeah, I know it's supposed to be a dark moment, like bad for her character, but like you said, the X-Files. That's interesting.
Well, it looks like it's been taken by aliens. I mean, you wouldn't build a courtroom like. I mean, look. Well, to be fair, it could be a Section 31 super secret. I mean, this is not a legal. This is not a respectable legal proceeding where the room has 1% illumination, and and you can't even see your judge. If that was today, you'd be like, I'm shit scared. I don't want to be here. I feel a bit... I'm not going to win this case. I feel a bit like the scapegoat here. Although, to be fair, I got the real impression here, because you can see the woman's face, and if you fix in post, you can. The black guy, it's a guy, The middle guy, I got the distinct impression they were saying he was like Pike, or somebody, like a Pike or a Kirk or someone familiar, because you couldn't see his face, but the voice was meaning something. But I wish if they'd used like Pike's voice from say the JoJo films, the actor, they couldn't get him. They couldn't get him physically, but going verbally. I'd be like, oh, cool, that's a guy. But the way they did that was trying to say something, but I don't think it was, except symbolism. But it's such an impractical courtroom.
It might be revealed eventually who he was. It might be important later. I don't know.
Yeah, very strange courtrooms and very quick as well. I mean, she accepts it all, but. And it's done, and that's the episode. And they rushed the killing of a Messiah, and they rushed someone going to prison for life. For life. Oh, damn.
And no discovery to be seen.
But the coming on episode 2 was a great little 2-minute piece with lots of cool shots of Discovery. So I took that as I saw Discovery in the coming this season.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I still got to see Discovery, but not in this episode.
Yeah, the After Trek thing, they showed a little clip, and there's some weird stuff going on Discovery by the looks of it. Some weird stuff in engineering, and the dust. The dust. And I know the captain, it wasn't shown in that clip, but he says there was a new way to fly. So something in engineering is odd. There's also a scene where she says, what's going on the ship? So I'm looking forward to what's coming up. See, like I said, I don't think we've got a real feel for what this show's about yet, because we just saw a small, self-contained prequel story, which is basically a movie length.
Yeah.
I feel disappointed. Because I don't know what Discovery's about yet. We got a backstory, and that's it.
Do you know what this might be? Didn't they order 2 more episodes?
Yes, yeah.
So
They're actually filming episode 15 today, because After Trek was filmed live last night, and they said we're starting to film episode 15 tomorrow. Huh. And Michelle Yeoh is still in Toronto because she came in live, which means I think there's going to be flashbacks with her.
Which is great.
So
good, brilliant. But I do think they realized the season wasn't like they had worked out 13 episodes with 12 actually being the story, and they realized they couldn't tell it in 12, so they added 2 more. So it's actually a full season plus the intro movie. Because if they pitch it like a movie, like not Netflix original, but for us it's Netflix original, but a full movie, and change the pacing to be movie pacing, how cool would that have been? You know, it's like a week before they release it, say, by the way, guys, that first 2-parter, actually a movie we made. Then it's the full 13 episode season. It's like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. It wasn't, but it kind of is in essence. So another long episode of review here, Stuart. On one we thought wouldn't be as long, but hey, we've got to talk about. So closing thoughts on this episode and review on different things and just breakdown.
Not as good as the first episode. It wasn't a successful part 2 in my opinion. Like you said, a lot of things felt rushed, and the battle scene lacked the epicness that I expected. I shouldn't have gone in with high hopes or any expectations for that.
Well, they set up a cool battle and then failed to deliver it miserably.
And just the writing I didn't think was on point on this one. There was just, again, like I said with the last one, a couple of missteps, and they kind of dropped the ball a few places, and it didn't really work for me. Part 1 was much better. The first part of part 1, solid. Kind of started falling apart near the end, and in this episode 2 was very rushed.
Yeah, I think having seen the first part, I was able to, my expectations went up. So I was like, okay, kind of solid.
Yeah, exactly.
Then followed by this, it's like, ooh, that's pretty poor. But again, you look at it as a whole, it kind of is okay, but not a good episode really, or even just TV, honestly. And certainly not as a standalone. If this was episode 2, if it was a movie, they could probably edit it and make it work better. I mean, especially flashbacks being throughout. But yeah, certainly the weaker of the two by hands down. Not a very interesting episode. Poorly done battle. Or my meld is unless it gives him cancer or something. I mean, he said serious physical toll and he stutters. I mean, it really needs to affect him because to galactic wide. I mean, that's the edge of Federation space. The edge. And disappointing only reboot, third reboot Klingons, or I guess 5th reboot Klingons if you want to go that route. Not great characterizations. Saru got nothing. Michelle Yeoh got nothing. Michael barely got anything interesting. All the characters weren't good in this episode. And that's why I said... We
still haven't been introduced to the main characters of Discovery.
Well, that's the thing. People we sort of died, and they didn't give the characters we gave anything interesting. They even killed Takuma. It's not an ensemble, and the characters we had weren't good enough. The writing wasn't very good. Again, first part much stronger. Big letdown for part 2, but now it's done. Now we can look forward to a discovery of the real storyline. But hey, kind of cool to see a full prequel movie before the actual show. I kind of like the fact that we actually got to see that story. It could just been done better, and they really need another rewrite to really tighten that up.
And I'm super looking forward to next Sunday. I want to see this thing get underway properly.
Isn't that weird? We cool first part, let down my second part, but we're now more excited. I mean, I'm now more excited to see episode 3 than I was to see episode 1, because I've now set a bar. We've seen a high, we've seen a low, and we were able to ignore the weird visual continuity problems, but enjoy the things they have referenced, like all the TNG sound effects.
Yes, and TOS sound effects.
Yeah, they were great. And hopefully from now on we can see everything cool. And Orville in a couple of days, and that straight after. No, I'm excited. It's going to be some good sci-fi and interesting. Yes. It can and will go everywhere. And boy, that cloaking device revealed.
Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. Put your thoughts, comments down below. What did you think of the episode? How did the whole thing work for you? And are you looking forward to what's coming up? Because I know I am, because it's still a mystery.
And I think like I did last time, what's your final number review overall? Because last one was a 7 for you, was 8 for me. This one...
Yes, 5.5.
Yeah, I would have said 5.
So we'll go with...
Maybe even 4. Let's you say 5.5, I say 4. Let's say 5 overall.
Okay, yeah, 5 overall rating, yeah.
Yeah. Could skip. You can't skip it, but could skip. Yeah. But yeah.
Good summary.
Yeah. I'm excited to see more.
Mm-hmm.
And I they threw enough interesting twists, like the 100-year of Klingon not being there, the cloaking, interesting little bites that me as a Trek fan are like, ooh, that's interesting. And I really hope the other 14 Klingon houses are all Prime, original looking Klingons.
Well, we'll have to wait and
We've
see.
seen 7 or 8 if you count Takuvma.
Yeah.
So who's going to lead the House of Takuvma now Takuma's dead? Will they rename it?
No, that will be that albino guy that has no house.
Yeah.
He's gonna take up the mantle, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Tune in part 3.
Yes. So until then, guys, check out our other reviews and look forward to more coming up because we're going to do this. And we're going to be looking at the ships and tech that we've seen as well at some point. So.
And thank you so much for watching this basically hour of us talk about what is an important event. I mean, the movies were something, but this is a new television show with a 15-episode arc. It hasn't been on TV for 12 years, and we also weren't around back then. So thank you very much for watching all this. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you tune back to our reviews because we try and be fair. We've always said what we liked, what we didn't like, why, both on filming and story and thematic and all these different levels we've tried to talk about. This isn't just a review, this is an analysis, breakdown. Hope you've learned something. Hope you like us more after this or don't like us for our opinion. We're just saying what we think, honestly. And we're not trying to pull punches or even praise when it's not deserved. So we hope you agree and we'll tune in next time. So until that next time, he is the one and only marvellous Captain Foley.
And he's the totally awesome Commander Cockings. And we are Team Trekyards. Look forward to seeing you guys in the future. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.